Hey, Brian, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
All right. Hey, Brian, thanks for letting me join you and chat for a little while. I'm looking forward to it. Well, my name's Brian McGinnis, and I've been in sales and working with clients for better part of 27 years now. Started out in college, carrying carrying a bag around, doing some cold calling, and following up on trying to warm up customers and bring them in to
Yeah.
the process.
The easy
and
part.
Yeah, the easy part, right? And then spent the better part of my career actually advancing along, handling different accounts of various revenue levels within the same organization. I was lucky enough to work for the same company for almost 20 years, um, both being feet on the street, managing existing clients, looking for unborn opportunities, then ultimately managing sales teams, doing some stints in sales operations and sales training, and then ultimately walked away from that career and began working for a smaller family-owned organization for the next almost 10 years, building up business with more of a focus toward operations, but operations while still liaising with and working directly with customers, right?
Yeah.
So one of the exciting things about that taught me is that it's great to have sales and interpersonal relations and understanding that dynamic of the business when you do go on to tackle other roles. Because ultimately, if you don't have customers and your customers aren't happy, your business isn't going to be successful.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I used to call bunker thinking. Like, because in the bunker, if you look at the old war movies, they move the ships around with sticks, and that's all nice and safe.
Right.
But when you're the soldier out in the field, it's a whole nother story.
Absolutely, it is. And you're also the one who's most in tune and aware of exactly what you need to be doing,
Yeah.
where your organization needs to be if you want to address the needs of customers and perhaps even stay ahead of where you see things happening and where clients are trying to get to. You
Yeah.
want to kind of want to be there to help them along the way, not try to catch up to where they're trying to be.
And, I think it's great when people have spent a long time at one company because you get to see a lot of people. You have kind of the same sales problem all the time, but you get to see how many different people solve it.
Yes, and especially we were in more of the service than, which I think there's a big difference that not a lot of people spend a lot of time getting into the difference between selling services versus selling product.
Yeah.
Completely different. You're only as good as what's happening like right now when you're dealing with services, right? Like, um, but you also get to deal with so many different customers across so many different industries that if you're in there and you're watching and you're observant, you can learn a lot about different business models, the way different types of businesses act along different parts of the supply chain, and really learn a lot, not just about different people and how they operate, but different models, different management approaches, different styles, and how successful or unsuccessful those are just
Yeah.
by being there and being a part of it and watching.
And was it a geography based? Looks like it was New York, New Jersey. Is that true?
Yeah, predominantly in the Northeast
Yeah.
of the United States, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. I did have a period of time where I was overseas working with a sales team in China, which was
Wow.
super exciting. And that was more in a training and a development capacity. So, one of the things I discovered is that sales itself was super exciting, and getting customers motivated to want to do business with me and my company was rewarding. But I was one of those individuals that found it rewarding also to be able to coach, counsel, motivate, and develop others to be able to do similar in the
Yeah.
field. But then it was even more rewarding to be able to coach and counsel the managers of the people that were out on the street. So you kind of get, if you're the further into training and development you get, the more rewarding it kind of feels to me, because now you can be looking at how things are operating at various levels in the organization and really make a difference if
And
you're
what did you see as the biggest mismatch on the internal side about not understanding sales?
I think there's a lot of people, I've always said that in my experience, it's kind of sales is where art and science kind of
Yeah.
kind of meet, right? There's the interpersonal piece. There's the ability to talk in a way that people understand and are receptive to what you're saying, trust you, really bring you in, and almost allow you to become more an influencer in their business. But then there's also the science end of it, of what are the tactics, the approaches, information that you need, and the diagnostics, if you will, of what you're doing day to day.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
what I've found is a lot of people kind of want to standardize.
On one
And
of
now I'm talking
them.
about from a sales management perspective. They want to standardize what your typical salesperson should look like, what they should be doing, what are the right behaviors that are going to get this result. And that's more of the scientific end,
Right.
right? Here's all the metrics, follow these metrics, and you're going to get this result, right? And the other side is, hey, these are the people that we can't shackle with metrics and this sort of thing. Let them go, let them run. But then there's no structure, there's no order, there's no, and sometimes that can go too far the other way. So what I've always found is that, or at least my advice to anybody that's managing salespeople is it's really all about different individuals. Some individuals are going to strive in a more structured type of environment. Some folks are going to be more successful if they're given a little bit of latitude and have you just there to kind of coach and get involved where they need you. And the key is really understanding all the personalities, almost like understanding a customer, understand the personalities of all the people that are on your team that you're responsible for, and you be who you need to be in how you manage that individual to give them what they need so that they're successful when they get out into the field. So this one size fits all phenomenon is really what I find to be one of the biggest errors or trick boxes you can fall into.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing this all the time now, that everybody wants to, this is our sales process. We count the number of activities that we do at each,
Right.
and it doesn't work. It works in some cases, so everybody thinks it works in every case.
Yeah, exactly. And they're trying, and you can kind of understand if you're running a business and so many other aspects of the business have these
Right.
indicators that,
Manufacturing, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
right. You can see what's
Supply chain.
wrong, get a team on it, go fix that, right? And then as the numbers come into parameters, you start to see the results over here. To some degree, I can kind of understand where that does have some play in sales, but by and large, that's not, you can't just, that can't be the focus, right? If that's what you focus on, you've moved the focus away from successful sales execution, bringing in business.
Yeah. And then you get the people, oh, it's about relationships and everything. And a good part is, but there is a process. Okay. We been selected as do they have the problem that we solve?
Right.
Is the problem important? Is there some urgency with it? Is it important enough to put money towards it?
Right. And how aware are they
Yeah.
that they might have the problem, but it just might be over here in the corner, and we need to kind of work with them to bring it to the forefront and truly understand what that problem is doing to the organization.
Yeah. Now, how did you develop this perception or this skill, this observation?
Thousands of sales calls
Yeah.
with various. I mean, I've been blessed from the standpoint that I've been able to really go with sales from being on the street and not knowing really where I'm going to start.
Yeah.
They kind of. I believe when I was put into sales, I think I was told, "Hey, you're good at talking to people. Go sell." Okay.
Okay. So he had a lot of great conversations.
Right. Can we talk a little more about this first, though? Before no,
Yeah.
get out there and sell. So, I've been out there dealing with the customers directly, but more so, I think being able to, in short order, when I say short order, maybe 5 years, 6 years into my career, I got my first shot at managing a team of people. And at that point, really, my job responsibility was not so much to be sitting back looking at the reports, but to be out there on the road with my salespeople every day,
Yeah.
observing and seeing what was going on. So as now as the years roll by and I've rotated through many different sales teams and had many people come in uh, working directly for me, I've really been able to see a lot of characters and a lot of personalities and a lot of folks on either side of the table, and really what tends to work and what doesn't work. Now, that's kind of given me a bit of the perception, but I really think then, And one of the things I'd give my organization a lot of credit for was they were really big believers in rotating individuals through different positions. And I really feel in a world where people are talking more about being subject matter experts and really specialized, I think we may be getting away from something where you really don't understand an aspect or this whole silo effect kind of comes down when you've rotated through different positions where your responsibilities have been different. And that's kind of what helped me when I went into sales operations, which is pretty much the numbers behind sales. You
Yeah.
start to understand and you start to see the bigger picture and what that really means and why it does have an importance. Then you go into sales training, which is kind of more like I would say on the art side, where you're developing the skills, the intercustomer relationships, negotiating skills, communication skills, and you can kind of see how all that, in my experience, having done those three things, it all kind of fits together for me, and I'm able to kind of see in balance where it all makes sense. I mean, I think first and foremost, like I tell everybody, right, wrong, or indifferent, when I'm sitting with a salesperson, my first question is, are you achieving the goal? And that is a yes, no question. You either are or you aren't, right?
Yeah, that's not an essay.
Right. Usually that invites some sort of a, well, let me tell you a little bit about,
Right.
no, let's
No.
just, right.
We'll get to the story.
Everything we discuss from here on out is under the heading of yes, we're where we need to be, or no, we're not. And now let's talk about it, right. But let's keep it real from the standpoint of, where are we, honestly?
Yeah.
And having those types of discussions and being able to keep your team focused on, let's just not lose sight. The first question we always talk about is, are we where we need to be, yes or no? And let's
And
not lose sight of everything else.
I got to imagine nobody comes to you if the answer is yes.
What actually toward the end, it was interesting. What I found, I would say, like, it was a bit of an epiphany for me. And once I started doing this, my sales teams were like, we were at the point where I was making my goal, but every single person that was on my team was achieving their goals as well. So what we would call balance across the sales team, which I actually think is, if you're a manager of others, that's one of the true barometers you want to be holding yourself to. Is there one or two people out of 10 on your team kind of succeeding and pulling the group along, or is everybody in a very balanced way participating? Because that kind of ties back to your style. It's a reflection of you as a manager.
Well, and that brings up a good point because in the last probably 20 years, we've moved away from the quota being realistic to the quota being unrealistic to make the on target earnings appealing to hire people.
Right.
Which now means that, and I've talked to consultants in this space, and they target 50 to 60% of people making their quota.
Mm.
Well,
Well, why? Why?
right. Well, you wouldn't do that with any other department.
Yeah, you would almost say that's built by finance for finance.
Or
Or, you know what I mean? More so than motivating people and being
right.
able to unlock that desire to just go get it and
Well,
bring in more.
because one of the elements of a goal is that it's a goal.
Right.
And a goal, if it's only achievable by 50% for some reason, some luck, some skill, some ability, some hard work, whatever, and the other 50, it's not achievable because it wasn't realistic to begin with.
Well, yeah, let's get a team of people together. We're going to go off to battle. And hey, by the way, half of us are not coming
Come
back.
back
Okay, well, I'm
by
motivated.
design,
Right, right.
not by
Yes,
chance, not by accident, not by bravery,
right.
but by design.
Hey guys, we've done the best we can here. Ignore
Yeah.
the green half of your bag.
You guys up front.
Right. But that's like, that's the whole morale and the stuff and the aspect of sales you kind of can't manage, right? Like there's got to be a certain understanding that you can't just put out a pulse survey that's going to measure everybody's motivation, loyalty, desire, feel for want to do more.
Yeah.
And
Well,
feeling like there's money to be earned, right? That the carrot is there, that it can be reached. It's not all the way out there. Because, I mean, salespeople are very, very aware of the goals and very aware of
that's
what
why
they
they're
need to do.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's their
But
income.
once they get themselves in a mindset that for whatever reason that has now become untainable, they're not going to waste their time trying to pursue something that they know. They'll start telling themselves, well, I guess next year we'll
Well, and I always ask the question, are reps more motivated before they hit quota or after they hit quota?
that's a good question.
Now,
That's a good question.
one year I hit my number in like June. And so that meant I had 6 months in accelerators, which
That's
up to 5 times my base commission rate.
well, that's the key, right? What are they more motivated? Well, what's the program look like when you get to
Uh,
that side of
motivated was not the word. It was like maniacal was the word.
it? Yeah, okay, so it was good.
It was
So it was
very
very,
good.
very good. Well, there you go, right? So it's all about, if you've got to build the plan and the compensation package to drive the behavior that you want,
Want.
right?
Yes.
Right. So if there's more money to be had on the other side of goal and it's significant enough that you're now maniacally chasing it, to use your term, then you've probably structured it well.
Yes.
But if you've structured a sales team to the point where goal kind of does, there's enough there on the base side and the goal is only a little bit, then maybe a little bit more when you achieve it, to your point, there's going to be people that are just going to make the determination, do I really want to work that hard for that much more? Or well, maybe I just
Or we're
start,
just going to smile and nod.
yeah, and line
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
up for next year.
You're a genius, boss. Yeah. This is the best company ever.
Right, right, right. What else do you need me to do? Right. But it's interesting because that's the whole sales management piece. But then there's also the piece of like what salespeople themselves bring to the table. How hard do they want to go after it? How motivated are they to really want to excel and achieve? I mean, I can't tell you my fair share of salespeople that have kind of been like, I mean, my philosophy has always been go above and beyond and do whatever you need to do, whether it's maybe in support of another end of the company. Like I was always intimately involved with the finance team when I was carrying a bag. If I can make a problem go away or help mediate and iron out some potential stress between a client and our business, I would go ahead and spend the time doing that because number one, I felt I learned more about how my business operates and I understand what's important to those folks over in the finance department. My customer is going to be appreciative that I'm coming in and I'm kind of lending a hand and trying to solve their problem. I used to see value in things like that. I can't tell you how many people I would be rubbing elbows with that would almost come back to me and say, why are you wasting your time on that? And you know what I mean? And it
You're
was just
right.
kind of,
And there's an argument on both sides. But I think that plays well to how well rounded your career is. Because to understand the operation side of sales and not just the battlefield, the mission side of it. And when you were hiring salespeople on the spectrum, how what did you look for? Because there's the mercenary on one end, and then there's the
yes, right.
and that's fine, but you know what they're after, and that's cool. And then there's
Yes.
the kind of the Boy Scout or the company person on the other end that oh, they need help cutting the birthday cake for the people in shipping today. They're over there helping putting the candles on the cake and everything.
Right, right,
Last day of the
exactly.
quarter. But
Yes, exactly.
what was your feeling on that?
Well, it's interesting because, there was always a debate also that kind of plays into that too of just what kind of credentials were you going to require in order to put somebody into a sales position. So and that was, and quite honestly, some of the best salespeople that I had the pleasure of working with weren't carrying the credentials
No.
that folks would be expecting, and many of them were motivated and appreciative of the fact that I was willing to take the risk
Mm,
and put them into play. But what I looked for really, by and large, was indications really of work ethic
yeah.
was the number one thing for me. is this person a scrapper? Are they really just going to dig in and do what needs to be done? Are they coming in with these preconceived standards of what I will and will not do? I'm not talking about morally or ethically. I'm talking about
About
that's not worth my
effort.
time. I'm not going to
It's
dig.
not my
Yeah,
job.
yeah, because I honestly feel that what I always look for is this person going to be able to willingly blend personal life and business life? Because when you're a salesperson, in my opinion, you got to be able to blur those lines. It's about getting the job done. It's about achieving the objective. And
Yes.
sometimes that means maybe going out to some dinners, maybe meeting somebody very early in the morning, maybe taking some late phone calls, maybe trying to stay up later than you would appreciate having to in order to just get that proposal in quicker before your competitor responds. All that sort of stuff. If it was that was the mindset that I felt if a salesperson's bringing that to the table, I can work with them. I could teach them the finesse. I could teach them, other things, but you got to be willing to put in the time.
Was there any particular background that you found resonated really well with either
Um,
military, athletics,
well, yeah,
hospitality?
folks in the military were certainly disciplined and not afraid to take on, but what I found also was that on the flip side of that, there was a lot of tell me what to do.
Yeah, I'll follow
Right.
orders,
Yeah.
but I need
Yeah,
them.
exactly. I'll do whatever you want. Just
Just
tell
tell
me,
me.
right? It's like, all right. Hey, listen, we've been at this for a couple of months now. I'd like to see that you've kind of picked this
Yeah.
up a little bit, right? Um, but certainly, I would never back away from working with anybody that was bringing that type of work ethic. I was also highly interested in folks that got their education at the same time that they were doing some sort of work and practical experience.
Yeah.
I did my bachelor's degree pretty much exclusively. I did start working toward the tail end of my career, but when I went for my master's, I did that at night while I was working. And I personally felt that I got a lot more out of that because I was in a much better position to practically apply what I was learning to what I was doing every day. So I kind of always gave and not to mention the fact that it also shows you the drive and motivation of the individual. If on top of working their job, they're also trying to improve themselves and learn a bit more in their free time. So that was
Yeah.
a very important thing for me.
And how long did it take you?
3 years at night.
Yeah.
Three
See,
years at night.
I got my bachelor's at night.
Wow. All
And
right. So you were really,
well, I was a goof off in high school and was thinking about the military. Then all of a sudden, didn't take my SATs. The only thing available was really at night that would you could
mm,
get accepted. But
mm,
boy, does it because you basically block off 5 years of your life
yes.
just
Yes.
working, more than 40 hours a week and going to school.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
But that tells you a lot about somebody when they've been able
whew,
to do something like that, right? I mean, there's some folks that just can't stick with that and achieve that, or other things come up that they deem to be more important at the time. But
yeah.
I think that is a very telling um, mindset of somebody and a willingness to do what they feel is necessary, because you can take out that going to school at night and you can replace that with research on opportunities or meeting with somebody after hours or doing some sort of customer entertainment.
Well, right, because I've always found the best part, the most productive part of selling was strategizing on what to do in a deal.
Oh yeah. Oh
And,
yeah.
and and if you're grinding all day, you're not really analyzing, strategizing, pulling a deal apart, wondering what they're going to do next. You're
Right.
you're you're doing stuff.
Yes. Yes. I always found that my best strategy time was always in the morning. I'd get
Yeah,
up early and get in early because I'm fresh. My mind is working a
clear.
little quicker. Yeah. And then when it's time to really hit the day, I felt like I was just already in gear and just a little bit ahead, that I was moving, you know?
And in the interview process, because you know, not hiring a bad player is key. Because once they're in the company, it takes good 6, 9 months to either figure out they work or either work their way out.
Yeah.
How do you in the interview process, have you ever found particular questions or analysis or process to be insanely effective?
Well, yeah, I was never a hey, sell me this pen kind of
Oh,
guy. Like that never ever. Anybody who does that, I would urge you to stop immediately.
just
Right,
stop
but
doing that.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. I would talk about things like, okay, so I've given you a base of accounts now. You're going to be responsible for 200 customers between here and here in revenue. How would you go about prioritizing who you're going to see? How
Yeah.
would you spend day one on the road? How would you analyze the base to determine who you think you need to see before you need? I was always trying to just get into the thought process, and whether the person would be able to just take on the job and have the right frame of mind straight
Well,
out of the gate.
well, that's it. That analytical judgment skill of, you know, where do you spend your time? Because that's the only asset you have. And it's a
Right.
very slippery one. Easy to
Indeed.
waste.
Yes. Very easy to waste.
Yeah.
Very easy to waste, and very easy to be almost too stingy with. Like we had referenced earlier about not wanting to take on certain things because you don't see the immediate payout.
Yeah.
Whereas, that you could be playing the long game,
Right.
maybe with some clients. Um, I would a question I would often ask folks is to say, listen, you're a salesperson. You are going to walk into places identifying yourself with a business card that says, hey, I'm a sales guy. I think we all know the immediate reaction somebody tends to have when someone saying they're in sales who you've never met before is walking up to you. So you want to immediately try to establish some sort of credibility or start to disarm any kind of defense mechanisms that person's going to have in play. How are you going to do that? And that would kind of give me a barometer of just how skilled or unskilled that person would be in interpersonal relations, right? Um, anybody that's going to come in swinging with the hard sell in the first couple of minutes that you're talking to a client,
Talking about themselves. Yeah.
yeah, right, exactly. I'm going to talk about how great I am. I'm going to talk about all these great things I've done for other people. Me, I. Even with cold calling, like I used to tell salespeople, I'd say, listen, you're walking into somebody's place of business. There's somebody behind the desk that isn't expecting you. So they may or may not be in the frame of mind that they want to have a conversation with you at that time, right? If it's a reception area or receptionist, maybe not as bad because they kind of know part of their job is to handle folks coming in. But sometimes there is no reception. You're going right in and you're catching somebody in the act of their day.
Right.
If your objective in that situation isn't get a card, leave a card, and get permission to engage in a future, like that is a perfectly acceptable goal. Is
Yeah.
just I'd like you to let you know who I am. I'd like to know who you are, and is it okay if I contact you maybe when it's more convenient for you?
Well, yeah.
I can't tell you how many customers though would actually people would say, oh, you know what, I've got time now. Have a seat.
Yeah, that does. Well, or you ask, do you drink coffee or tea?
Mm.
They go, well, coffee, cream, sugar, black. Oh, I like a frappuccino. It's like, what kind? Oh, this. Okay. Why do you ask? Well, next time I'm going to bring you one. See ya. Right.
Right. It's not even an option. I'll be back.
I'll be
And I'm
back.
bringing you what you like to drink.
Right. And you bring it, you give it to them and you sit down. You don't ask for anything. What people forget is that there's a person who's been told how to get rid of you, who's
Oh
been
yeah,
trained how to get rid of you.
exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
And you
And
wrestle.
it's almost like the more you push, the more they're
Mo-
going to push back because they've
yeah,
already
they
got the
know they
counter
got
going.
it down.
Yeah,
That's why there's
exactly.
no soliciting sign in the door when you open to go through.
Exactly. Exactly. So, that's I always found that at least by and large, taking that more passive approach and just being like, look, I know you're
Yeah.
probably busy. I happen to be in the building, that sort of thing, tended to work. And that's an example of where, um, when you interview folks, I kind of wanted to get a feel for what kind of a style is that person going to bring. If
Yeah.
there's somebody that I'm going to be having cold calling, if it's somebody that's going to be coming in with an existing book of business that I'm looking for them to cultivate and grow, I might be asking some things they should be able to walk in through the door.
And when you look at a team, when do you know that it's like, okay, these people are good, obviously, they're fine. These people, they're coachable. These people over here probably shouldn't be here for whatever reason. What
I,
how do you analyze that?
you can, yeah. Oh, and this is something I had wanted to tell you earlier, because this ties into what you just asked me. One of the things that I did that altered my style toward the end of my career there at that company was that I went from having big group sales meetings and discussions and information dissemination, to having 1 hour every week individually with every person on my sales team, which for me was harder, because now instead of being able to
Right.
sit everybody in a room and in 1 hour
Time
disseminate everything
consuming
I wanted, a lot of times I was talking about the same thing 7, 8, 9, 10 times,
times. Yeah.
but I was kind of trying to take a piece out of my sales book of catering to the individual, and actually treating my employees that way and saying, look, maybe I've got the same message to deliver to 10 people, but I'm going to deliver it 10 different ways,
Yeah.
because I know how each person behaves. I know what is important to each individual, and I can actually cater my message to the individual. So once I started taking that approach, to bring it back to what you were saying, I would do that initially whenever I would take on a new sales team. And it was more the answers I got to the questions I asked very quickly told me who I was sitting across the table from.
Yeah.
Not just about the numbers, because especially when you're in services where you're doing a lot of year over year sales, there can be some phenomenon happening
Sure.
in your accounts that you're going to have a rough year, just because maybe the big dog in the group has had a change in their business or what have you. So it wasn't so much making snap judgments based on the numbers, but could the person explain to me what was happening? If the numbers are great and the goals are being reached, why? Who? What did we do there that enabled us to get those accounts where they need to be? Who's coming next? What do we have lined up? If the accounts aren't performing, who's not performing? Why are they not performing? Do we have a strategy to try to address that? Is there an offset coming on there? And the people that owned it, the people that would be able to say to me, well, here's what's going on and here's why and here's my plan, and quite honestly, this is where I could use your help. Those were the people that were like, top notch,
Yeah.
right? The defensive people that somehow, it was the process or the universe or
Stars.
yeah, or a lot of this, it's going to be very, very hard to work
Right.
with somebody who's not even owning their
Yeah.
performance, right? That's kind of, but I was always accused in some cases of maybe being a little bit too liberal and understanding and letting people have a little more rope. But my attitude was always, if the person's willing to own their performance, if the person's willing to put in the work, if they understand what's happening with their accounts, and they have semblance of strategy on what they're going to do, I can work with those people.
Yes.
The raw material is there.
Right.
Sometimes I'd be wrong, but by and large, I was correct. And the only thing I would evidence that with is often I would take on a team where I would have people rotate into my team that maybe were not as successful in other positions, but we succeeded,
Yeah.
right? So that's the thing that makes you feel good, right? When you're not a direct customer facing salesperson anymore and you're managing a team, it's watching these people just fire on all cylinders. Not just one, not just two, but the whole group
The whole
starting to fire
group.
up. Yeah, that's for me, that's like the euphoria of signing. I mean, I've signed big deals and I've been super excited, but being in the room when one of my guys signs their first big deal, that's
That's fun.
that's for me almost as good or even better.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, Brian, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Oh, well, I do have a website. You can find me first of all on LinkedIn, Brian McGinnis. I do have a consulting company that I'm operating now, Brian McGinnis Inc. And my website is Brian McGinnis Inc. abbreviated BMI, and it's bmidrivingprofit.com.